Hey, this is Lucas Catton, founder and CEO of Innovia Behavioral Health, and coming back with another interview with one of our practitioners here. Today, I have Attie van Burren, who is an amazing coach and facilitator, not only with us, but has a long history of doing so and trains other coaches as well. So, Attie, first of all, welcome and thank you
Thank you.
for what you do. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about you and your background and history in the space.
So I started my life as a farm boy, growing up on the farm and in a very small town, and then made my way into the city where I started working in the mining industry. I then quickly learned how to create good relationships for clients, right? And then most of my career I've spent being like an account manager or an account executive of some form. And technically I was never the strong person, but I would be sent out to tough clients and then go there, come back with no different results, but clients would be happy. It's only later in life when I went through my own struggles and my own addiction to and then went to rehab, then look back on my life and then kind of reflect on all those things. I can now in hindsight learn a little bit more why I could do the things that I do, right? So if I look back, I'm good with people. I've always been good with people. I've never been the best worker, I'd say, in the corporate space, but I was really good at listening to the clients and really get them on board to build a relationship instead of just solving their problems. And basically that's most of the work that I do is based on that. What I've learned from coaching is, and it's a trap sometimes that we fall in as coaches, is we want to solve problems for clients because then we make ourselves valuable, right? So as an account executive or as a coach or as a practitioner, if I can solve your problems, then I'm valuable to you, then you would want me on your side, right? But what I've learned through the years is that that's completely the wrong approach, right? Because solving problems doesn't really build healthy relationships. It's like, let's wipe trying to solve problems off the table and let's just sit together and see where we're at, right? If I can listen to you, wherever you are, whether it's in your pain or in a problem or in a great state of joy in your life, can I sit with you and just be there in your feelings instead of me trying to fix or solve or change it? It's just like, so through my whole career, I've actually been doing that. I just didn't know. So when I was introduced to coaching, after a stint in rehabilitation, I was introduced to coaching, and it blew me away completely. And I instantly felt that connection of this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I took 2 years break from life, and then I came back, and then I've coached ever since. Right. I've also do some business work and some other stuff, small stuff, but mainly my main focus is coaching and training and developing other coaches and working with small business owners, coaching, training them into creating whatever they see their future to look like. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster. That's just like the top layer. Underneath all of that is a whole lot of ups and downs that comes with building a life, right?
Yeah, it's inherent, right?
And my life is not exempt of that. There's been real ups, but there's also been real downs and real lows, and small victories here and there has helped. Yeah.
Absolutely. That makes sense. I think that's what when I talk to people about, for example, what we do here, and it's there's sometimes this preconceived notion that the term behavioral health automatically means like um, something officially like treatment, diagnosis, and prescribing or that kind of thing, which has its place, but that's not what we do. In fact, when people sign up, they specifically understand that we're not treating, diagnosing, or prescribing, and we have people with all different backgrounds and some who are capable of doing those things, but not with us, because of what you just mentioned, is that we all have highs and lows and ups and downs and things that we're dealing with, and when we can bring in people like yourself who are expert at helping people navigate that and solve their own problems rather than solving something for them, or addressing them, or how, or sitting with them, or however it is, then that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So tell me about the two, like right now, the two groups that you run. It's building emotional resilience and dealing with pain and loss, right? Or
Yeah.
kind of a grief type thing. Okay, tell me about those a little bit.
Yeah. First of all, I was pleasantly surprised when you told me I can pick any group I want, right? I can make it what I want, and then I was like, oh yeah. So the one real passion for me is grief, loss, and pain. And there's a whole backstory to that. You want me to go in there?
Please, yeah.
So I feel real comfortable in that space, and the reason for that is that I went through a childhood watching someone go through that for almost their entire life, right? So my dad, his brother was 1 year older than him, and when they were 18, his brother got leukemia and then passed away. But there's a beautiful story told by my mom and my gran about my dad going to work, and then every Friday after work he'd come to the hospital, and then he'd take half of his salary and put it in the drawer and tell his brother that when he's ready to come out of the hospital, he'll be sorted for. So it's like, and my dad really, like, I can feel that pain that I can feel. My dad lived that pain, right? He always felt that his brother was better, so he felt like that was taken away from him, and he lived his life in pain and agony because he felt he would rather have died than his brother. Mm-hmm. So I watched my dad go through this back and forth thing with the grief, right? So I think naturally as a child, I learned how to be okay with just watching it and not just jumping in and trying to fix and rescue and whatever. And then my father passed away of a heart attack. And I felt a complete shock and loss that I didn't expect, right? And it's like most things in life, right? We think when you get married, it will be like this. And then you get there, you get married, and then it's not better or worse, it's just different, right? So as a young man, I thought about how it would be losing parents, but I could never imagine that gaping hole that it leaves. And today still, I would talk to my boys, and then all of a sudden it would feel like my dad was here. Like there's that connection to someone that close to you never goes away. So I find peace allowing other people to just grieve and be whatever that is for them, right? Because no one is on the ladder of going to acceptance, right? No one's at the same stage, and people jump up and down between stages. So if we look at the stages of grief, and this is one of the backbones of that group, is looking at the stages of grief. It's like we don't go through it normally. It's not black and white. It's not like 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4, and then you're accepted, right? We hover up and down this ladder, and we touch points here and there through our lives. And maybe we never accept it fully, or sometimes maybe we do, right? And for me, it's just to kind of like open the space for other people grieving, because who do you go to when your child has committed suicide, right? Like who's going to make it better?
Right.
Or when you've lost the love of your life in a freak accident, or whether you've received a positive HIV status, right? So in this recovery thing that we talk about, it's what am I recovering, right? I'm recovering something that I've lost. I'm recovering from feeling the pain and grief and whatever that is. And it's a journey, right? So that's really been one of my passions, is to find a place where coaching can fit into that space.
Wow.
Instead of just, and I know like all the other treatments that you mentioned are out there for these people, but how can we bring coaching as an adjacent service to that and just hold people in a space where they can choose whether they want to move forward or stay here, and not push them or pull them, and just say, okay, well, here we are, and then just let's explore what's there. So that's kind of the backbone of that group. And then the second group, the emotional resilience, is just like an add-on to that, right? How do I make myself resilient enough to show up for the other people in my life while going through tough emotions, right? And the tough emotions can be anything that we make it, right? We could make it, we like to label some emotions negative and some positive, right?
Sure.
And in the resilient class, we learn tools and methods to be able to hold both of those at the same time, right? I watched my father, a man, hold that intense pain and grief and feel joyful for me as his boy at the same time. Like I
Yeah.
watched him do it, right? So it's not an impossible thing, and I know that we can have the tough negative and the positive stuff in our lives, and we can hold them together and still show up as the person I want to show up, right? And for me, that's what the behavioral health in this space that we do provide. It's like, how do I show up for my life? How do I show up for me? How do I show up and how do I behave for my kids and my wife and my colleagues and the people in my community? And can I do that consistently, in a way that I'm proud of? So that when I wake up in the morning, I want to go to my life. I don't wake up in the morning going like, oh, again, another day, right? For me, that's what behavioral health is all about. It's like waking up and being happy to be in my life. And hopefully
Yeah.
people get that when they come to the groups. Like that's the secret hope. People
That's,
will get that, right?
yeah, no, that's amazing. Because in an earlier conversation that I had with someone, we were talking about the fact that everybody has something that they're dealing with at some point in their
Yeah.
lives, and these, like the tools or the skills or the practices that you're talking about are applicable at so many different points in life, whether it be something that's really heavy that you're dealing with now, or not, or something that is maybe just a little bit stressful, or something, maybe things are good but you're trying to go up higher from there, or however that is, the expectations, the disappointments, the so many things about life that as you're talking, I'm going through. I was sitting there thinking of my own kids, for example, and how I've experienced those things that are very real, of going, okay, feeling something really heavy and at the same time something very joyful,
Yeah.
and being able to balance both those things. And that's I think that speaks to a lot, especially when maybe people get down on themselves for feeling a certain way, and then
Oh, yeah.
try and labeling it bad, or that they're somehow bad or whatever for
Yeah.
feeling that. And I think it's incredibly important to be able to do what you're talking about, and take a look at maybe a bigger picture or a different way of reframing it, or understanding those feelings a little more, that kind of thing.
No. And just as you were talking, the realization that I don't have to suppress that, right?
Yeah,
They can coexist. I don't have to
yeah,
suppress one to have the other one. And that's maybe the big idea, right? Is to people are much stronger and much more resilient than they think.
yeah, yeah. Good
And
point.
like for me, it's like one of my childhood wounding is, and not for any particular reason, but it's like, um, everybody just needs someone to believe in them.
Hmm.
And because as soon as someone believes in me, there's this little bit of hope that comes. And then all of a sudden, when I start believing in myself, then action starts coming. Then it doesn't really matter how the motivation drive starts or whatever. Because if I start believing in myself, then automatically I'm starting to put stuff into action. And then things just snowball from there. There's this psychologist from Canada that says the research doesn't show how high someone can elevate themselves, right? When you start believing in yourself and start growing and building steps forward to the life that you want, there's no research that show how far you can go. There's no ceiling, right? We can
Hmm.
go as far as we want. And that's exciting for me, is to see people believe in themselves and start creating the life that they want. That's the excitement, right?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. There is so much key in that, in the belief part,
Yeah.
and that's a topic that comes up in some other parts too, and it's certainly that that I look at different times when you mention believing in yourself, or having other people believe in you, so that maybe that somebody goes, oh well, that's giving me some motivation, or some some extra support to go, okay, well, maybe I can do this, whatever it is, anything from
Yeah.
athletics to whatever, you name it. But
Whatever I
that,
choose, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, whatever you choose, exactly. And that's the belief in itself, I think, plays over so many different parts of life, whatever the goals are. Just having that belief, whether it's believing that you can take it into some other ways too. When you look at like placebo effect, if you believe that this thing is going to help you, then
Yes,
you can
it actually
have a
does. Yeah,
positive result.
yeah, yeah.
So that's cool. So how do you typically go about helping someone to get from a state of potentially doubt to belief, or maybe feeling like they're lacking something to moving them in a different direction?
So in the groups in the group that I run on the platform, I hold the space open in a coaching environment, which means we don't give each other advice. We don't project. We don't advise. We allow people to find their own answers. If you allow someone to sit and figure it out, they normally do. Yeah. And that's basically it's a very simplistic approach, but it's like, I'm not going to help you. You're not drowning. You
So
can
you can give like a framework,
It's
and
a
then they
coaching
understand
framework.
that. Okay.
It's a coaching framework, and it's part of the contracting with what we do when somebody joins the group, right? It's part of the contracting. This is how this group works, right? This is why we don't advise you, because sometimes I give my personal power to you, right? Because you're my mentor or my therapist. So you have all the great answers. You need to help me because I can't do it. So the more I start giving you answers, the more I help you believe that that's true.
Yeah.
And so that's why the coaching approach fits so well for me. And obviously there's a space where advising and mentoring and that fits in. But for the hour you spend with me in the group, you're going to feel what it feels like to be on your own and to believe in yourself and to try and find an answer, because there's no right or wrong. It's just like you have to find something and then try and then see how do you learn from that so that you can move forward and create something.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really great. So what do you like best about working in groups? Like there's a lot of one-on-one work and things like that that's out there and available, and certainly there's some availability through Innovia to do that as well. But the whole thing is based on the group notion, and that the live connection that occurs in the group. So for you, what is it that you like most about the group atmosphere?
In the group atmosphere, what I like most is the energy exchange, right? So when somebody brings a real tough or joyful thing into the group, everybody has to deal with that, right? And then whether they make it about themselves or about the other people in the group, there's a different dynamic that runs around. And I don't know what it is, but when somebody witnesses, when somebody sits and other people just witness them in how they talk and what they say without giving them advice or telling them what they should have done better, just witnessing them, there's a power. I think it breaks down the shame of it, to just be witnessed by a group of other people in just sharing what's on your heart. I think it breaks down the shame. I don't know exactly. I'm not someone that knows science too well, but in quantum physics, it's that thing, right? When you observe something, it changes the pattern. And I think in group, it's exactly the same thing, right? When someone else observes me, it takes a whole lot of courage and a lot of fear that tried to stop me from sharing the stuff that I want to share. But if I share it, it's like something gets washed over you. It's a very different, unless you've experienced it, it's very difficult to explain. But there's a different power of empowerment for someone when they share in a group format. And then obviously the other normal stuff of, oh, I can relate. Oh, thank God I'm not the only one going through this.
Right.
There's all that stuff as well, right? There's the relatability and the feeling of like I'm not alone. Like there's support. Even though I'm not going to ask you to help me with anything, I feel supported because I can see that everyone's kind of going through the same thing.
Sure. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that observer effect example that you give. That just being present and observing creates a form of change in itself.
Definitely.
That's amazing.
And it takes a lot of courage and discomfort to actually come up in a group and do this, right?
Yeah.
And the reward is as big as the discomfort. That's what I actually wanted to say. The reward I get, the personal reward I get, and the growth I get is as much as the discomfort I feel in sharing something with a group. And I guess that's why I like the group format, is that everybody will leave. Even if you haven't shared, you will leave different when you leave the group.
That's a great point. That's I recently, let's say, in the past few years or whatever, have realized, even though you may read or hear things at different points, but like really for myself, fully realize that in order for me to experience certain types of growth, I have to be uncomfortable doing something new,
Definitely.
scary, uncertain, whatever it is that in order to achieve that growth. Otherwise, I'm just going to continue following the same patterns, and the same outcomes are probably going to happen as well. And expecting something different is not going to be there. And if you're wanting some type of change to occur, then it's probably going to be uncomfortable. But knowing that uncomfortability, that uncertainty, that difficulty, that the reward is at least as good and sometimes much greater.
Oh yeah,
Than
and then that's the thing, right? We can't measure that. The reward
no,
might be exponentially great
right,
and unscalable for you going forward, because there is no ceiling, right? The
yeah,
deeper you go with this work, one of my mentors told me that the more you do group work and the more you do group facilitation, you learn that you can go deeper.
yeah,
There's even a deeper level. There's no stop, right? There's always something that can go a level deeper as we kind of layer down into ourselves to find the real core, right?
yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, and in a format like this too, depending on who's there, there's always something. There's also always something new. It's
Yeah.
never just the same thing every time. Even if it's the same people, it's never the same thing.
Yes, and even though I have content and topics that's fixed, it's always
Mhm.
organic. And what's nice about the coaching is we don't have to stick to anything. The coaching can just allow the group to be organic around whatever's coming up, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
great point. Well, what in terms of some of the other things that that you like to help people with, some things that might even come up in one of these other topics. You mentioned some recovery background, substance use related stuff, and are there some other things that might come up in this, or that you can also assist with, or do you have limits for where to go and where not to go within your groups?
Yeah, so within the groups, whatever's comfortable for everyone, right? Whatever's comfortable for someone to share, and we always ask permission. That's what I like. If you put the coaching framework on top of anything, you can basically discuss what needs to be discussed as long as it's respectful and mindful, and we have permission of everyone in the group to continue further. So when some hard stuff comes up, I normally just ask permission from the group, right? And if the group is in consensus, then we continue, and if the group is not, then we might just take it offline. And what's beautiful about Innovia is we've got so many qualified practitioners in different modalities. So we
Yeah,
can always just make a referral to one of the professionals that we have in our team. That's what makes it really, really good. Because for me, it's easy to work with someone when they're a good fit.
sure. That makes sense. And great point there as well. Those who have full memberships, that include individual session, but we also do weekly support check-ins or emails with that. And on the initial screening, when people talk about maybe some things that they have either had some issues with in the past, or things that they're wanting to address or potentially learn about more, that kind of thing, we can help recommend either these particular groups or these particular practitioners, and sort of with that feedback guide people along the way. So that's a great point that you make too. It's not isolated to one specialty, that there is such a variety, and it's growing. That's we keep adding more options. So um, well, I am incredibly grateful again for your time, and for what you do, what you add, what you bring to offering people. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to this discussion or anything?
No, I feel like we kind of made a full circle. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Attie. I really appreciate it. We're gonna share this up on our YouTube channel. We'll put it on our site, innoviabh.com, also innovia.life. So this is another installment of Innovia Life discussions. And
Nice.
again, thank you so much.
Thanks, Luke.
All right, take care.
Bye.